and I've interacted with many of you on the call in that function. And that really was sort of a path that led me through originally kind of training as an engineer and focus in human factors and usability and things of that sort. And specifically why I love this talk or why I'm here today is a lot of what I do in informatics is really focused on improving efficiency and effectiveness in work. I'm drawn to that field because I really just in general enjoy making things better or trying to find things run more smoothly. I'm often finding myself asking, there's got to be a better way. That's sort of the engineering mindset that I carry with me today. But really at the heart of it, it's that I really just hate spending more time working than I need to. To be clear, I love medicine. I love practicing medicine. I love being at this organization, but I also don't want to be here any longer than I need to because I would much rather be home with my family and doing other things that I love when I can get off the clock as soon as I can. So a lot of that really drives this. Going forward, so again, you are all very capable people. You have surely developed systems that have worked for you. And so this is not meant to be a one size fits all, or even something that I'm saying that you must follow everything that I talk about here. My hope is that this is an opportunity to reevaluate and inspect some of your systems and think about ways to find improvements as we're always trying to get better and again try to find times where we can be a little bit more efficient or a little bit more effective. With that said, no matter what you're doing, you really do have to have a system. And if that's one thing I can come away with today is to inspire you to again maybe reassess that and commit to it and assure that it's really doing what you need it to. And if it's not, being willing to admit that as well. And then of course, being ready to change it or try something else out when your system's not working, try a new system. And again, that's really what it comes to is there's got to be a better way when we're hitting things that are frustrating. So with that said, when people talk about efficiency, there are often talks that just talk about, well, what can I do to possibly organize my life? What's the shortcut that's going to make everything better? And there are dozens, if not hundreds, of apps and technological implementations and different sort of platforms on which people will say is the way that you can structure all of your life. And I think that these are all great, and I'm not going to talk about really any of them today, but anywhere from just plain pen and paper to things built into your smartphone to some of these proprietary or free things that are available. They are all different ways to support efficiency in organization systems, and so it's opportunities to consider them. I'll talk about a few things that are just some nice kind of little things to be aware of that most of us interact with. And all that said, I am not an original thinker in this by any means. As all of the things I'm telling you are things that I have found from other places or heard in other talks or read about. Much of it comes from this book. I imagine some of you on the call have even read this book or maybe read it a couple times. But David Allen is sort of a motivational and sort of public speaker around this efficiency space and has really sort of developed an entire culture around this idea of getting things done. And this is the title of this book that's been in print now for about 25 years, maybe even longer actually. The point here is that it really emphasizes a structure on which you can build your own system. And so the main principle or the thing that I take away from this book that always just kind of drives me and drives this thinking is that we are really trying to free our brains to do the things that it is good at, which is process and manage tasks, and not have it focus on thinking about how we're going to get to those tasks. And the idea there basically is if it's on your mind is not clear. And so if we can develop systems to clarify exactly what our commitment is and what we need to do, that is the way to make progress and actually be effective and use our brain power on the task rather than worrying about the task. And so the idea then, of course, is if you know what actions you need to take and you have a system that supports that, you don't have to worry about getting things done because you just will be getting them done, which is maybe easier said than done, but it's the system that this whole process and method is built around. And in a minute, I'll talk a little bit more about the framework that David Allen uses in that getting things done. Before that, I just want you all to take a moment to just go with this exercise with me, which is basically to think about a project that bugs you or distracts you or is taking your attention right now, or something you need to do. You need to, maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's this month, and just think about what success would look like if that were done. And you can write this down if you want to. If you're just going to hold it in your head, that's fine too. So define what success is, and then what's the very next action that you need to take to move forward. If there were no other limitations, if you didn't have an inbox full of messages to attend to, if you didn't have to get to pick up your kids from school at the end of work today. If whatever it is, what's the next action you would need to take to get closure on that? I imagine there's probably a lot of things running through your head about things that need to get done, maybe more than one item. And hopefully the idea here is that you can also at least identify that next step. And the reason I like this exercise as just a thing to remind ourselves is that we really are not actually talking about managing our time, but really managing our actions. And it's clarifying, what is the next project that I need to work on? What do I need to do there? And how do I define that I'm actually making progress on that? So again, I'm actually doing it, not worrying about doing it. Now, that said, I will spend a little bit of time talking about actually some true time management strategies later on here, but we'll come back to that. So there is some part of that, but really, especially in this first part, the managing action is kind of the thing that we're going to talk about. And that really comes to these 5 steps. Again, this is from the Getting Things Done framework. These are really the key things that you can be considering to manage your workflow. And I'll go through them in detail here. So what I'm going to do is move this down into the corner. So we'll have that as a little roadmap, and I'm going to bold out where we are in that so you can keep track of where we are in this space. But the top one, this is really, I think, if there's anything that you could take away from this talk, it's the thing that has stuck with me after reading that book 15 years ago, and I continue to come back to it, is just this idea. This is from a quote. I don't know who Brahma Kumaris is, but again, the quote, I love it, which is this: a task left undone remains undone in 2 places. The actual location of the task and inside your head. Incomplete tasks in your head consume the energy of your attention, and they gnaw at your conscience. And again, it's that idea that we spend so much time worrying about how we're going to get things done that we're never actually using our energy to be effective and make progress on that. And so if you can have a method to take those tasks and put them in a place where you know they are and you know they're ready for you when you're ready to just work through that to-do list, that allows you to, again, really channel the energy effectively. And there are tons of methods for capture. These are a lot of those apps and things like that I showed you a few slides back. And I'm not going to say there's any one that you have to work with or use, and I'm sure people have experimented with different ones. The key here is it needs to be something that works for you, that is robust enough to handle your needs, is also focused enough that it's not scattered all over the place. You know, if you are using Post-it notes and you have Post-it notes on your desk at work and at home and stuck to the dashboard of your car, it's not going to be as effective as if there's one common place you can reference. And then it needs to be something that you can get emptied to 0. This can't be a place where you just pile things up and then they go there forever. And this is not an epic talk. I'm not talking about epic efficiency today, but this is one of those places, right? We have, so many of us can get in this habit of having those things that we're just holding on to in our inbox, but that's our workspace. That's our task space in clinic for so many of us. And so getting things done, well, it's the talk, mark it as done, get those things out of the inbox so you're not continuing to have to come back and revisit and wonder, did I deal with this? Did I not deal with it? Are there other things brewing? Other things doing? It's an easy place to put things, but it's that emptying thing that can be challenging with that. It meets everything else. Kind of true with email too, right? Again, not talking about email that much today, but that is a place where things can just continue to pile up. And it might be, for a lot of purposes, just your inbox in email functions for these things. It's digitally connected. You can log in at home, at work. You can get to it when you need to. It is, there are lots of tools like prioritization and setting your follow-up. However, getting it down to 0 is a challenge. There's, of course, a whole subculture around inbox 0, which I think has its own merits and drawbacks. And we're not going to talk about that today. But again, it's one of those things that just finding ways to actually filter out and try to empty is so important in this space. So you have a capture method. The clarifying the task is really kind of the meat of where you're actually getting to this being, not only do you know where it is, but you know that there's a plan or a way to manage it. And so this is a flow chart that is helpful to walk through when you're thinking about any sort of task. And so when you have that task that you've now put into your space, that you've captured it, you can ask your question right away. Is this something that is actionable? Is this a project I can work on right now? I shouldn't use project because I'm going to use that in a minute, but is this a task that I can do something for right now or not? If not, there are a lot of reasons for that. It might just be something that's never actionable. That should just be out of your space. Put it in the trash. It's just an email that was an FYI that you don't need to know about anything more, or it's already been handled. Get rid of it. Maybe you're waiting for someone else to do something, and that's sort of an incubation space, right? I can't act on it now, but I'm going to need to in the future. And so I need to hold that in a space where when this surfaces back to me, or when the time is right, I can then get to it. And then of course there are some of those things that, yeah, you just do want to get back and look at it, and having that as a reference in the future. But again, getting that out of your task list is the key thing here, because otherwise you're continuing to come back to it and wondering if you need it, or why you kept it, or what it's there for. And there's these little slips of seconds that can be lost with these that are really just not serving you. So let's say it is actionable. Then you have to sort of think about what's the next step. This is that exercise I was doing before, is where is it that I need to go to make progress on this? Where is it that I know I need to go to actually have this be complete? If it's something that's going to take a lot of work, that's actually where you kind of think about this as being a true project. And again, David Allen has a very specific definition of this, but I think of it just more broadly as kind of just something that's going to take some time and some effort. But if it's just one thing, then there's the next question, which is ask, can I get this done in 2 minutes? If you can get it done in 2 minutes and it's on your head and you're thinking about how to do it, get it out of your head, right? It's back to that same thing. If it only takes me 2 minutes, it's best to just take care of it in the moment. And if you don't have 2 minutes, you maybe just shouldn't have even been thinking about it, and we'll come back to that too. However, if it takes a little bit more time, then you have to think about, again, is it something that, yes, I do need to do it, but I just need more time, so I'm going to put it into a deferral place? Or is it that someone else could or needs to do it? And then, of course, sending it off to them rather than just stewing on it and thinking about how you're going to delegate or where you're going to send it off, or those kinds of things, is that question. The projects kind of has a whole separate, there's a chapter about projects and all that. I'm not going to spend too much time about that today, but it's just this idea that there's sort of iteration of planning and executing, and even these steps in the project are going to kind of put themselves at the top of this flow chart. And again, sort of having those questions of whether or not the steps are actionable and how much time it takes and all of that. So it sort of kind of feeds forward through this over and over again. A few other notes about whether it's not actionable. Again, if you don't need it, get rid of it. Don't pack right onto things that you don't need. If there is it needs some time, having a system that's going to bring it back to you, or you're going to reference to find it, is also a way to keep your mind free. So that might just be like, for example, in Epic, there are ways that you can delay send a message to send something back to you in a week or a month. So you don't have to worry about kind of going back and checking to see if they've gotten their labs done, or see if they've seen that consultant yet, or that kind of stuff. But so ticklers can be really effective. They take just a little bit of effort and a little bit of technical skill often to set them up, but can help, again, take this off of your to-do list as check on. Know that it's going to come back and help you check by prompting back in. Putting a physical mark on a calendar to remind you to do it, so that you only are actually thinking about it when the time comes, can help with this as well. And then the last thing, of course, I talked about this before, but the reference is just when you're saving that thing that you can actually get back to it. Very, very critical with this. A few more things on the other side of it. When you're talking about delegation, sending it off to someone else, if it's just something that you need to do later, or you're going to defer, again, putting it in a space you're going to find it. If it's just I'm going to come back to this in a week because it's a low priority, having a mark on your calendar or your to-do list that you're going to hit it there at some point in the future. Or if it's just you need more time, and maybe it is just what you're going to do once you have that time that you've blocked off, maybe at the end of the day or over the lunch break or whatever it is. Another thing that I find really helpful when thinking about this organizing and prioritizations, when you have a lot of things on your list, putting it into this is another thing I've stolen, the Eisenhower matrix, and not from the President Eisenhower. I don't actually know the origins now, but it's just sort of a nice handy way just to think about things in this dual axis place that you can categorize really any task, which is to say there are things that are very urgent. They need to be done as soon as possible, or they don't need to be done so soon. And then it's very important. Someone is really relying on it. It needs to be done really well. So if something is high importance and high urgency, that should always be the first thing on your list. If something is low urgency and low importance, you probably shouldn't be doing it. If it's not important, then it's not that relevant. So there's sometimes those things you can filter out as well there. I kind of think about this as a good place to put like emails in that, right? Some of those just a spam email that just has some thing you don't actually care about, but the marketers decided it's low importance and low urgency, you probably just shouldn't even read it. Just get it out. We'll come back to that too. But then of course these other spaces where it's urgent but not important for you to be doing it, can someone else do it? Can it be delegated? If it's low urgency but needs to get done, having a space on the calendar. This is kind of flipping it. This is a very different approach, but this is something that shows up in the space also. It's called Eat That Frog. And this is from a quote that is regularly misattributed or regularly attributed to Mark Twain, but it's actually turns out he probably didn't say this. But anyway, the story's more fun if it's Mark Twain because of him being a great writer, all that. But the quote is, "Eat a live frog first thing in the morning, and nothing worse will happen to you for the rest of the day." The translate to that within the to-do list is that thing you just really don't want to do or you've been dreading addressing, do it first. Get it behind you. Then everything else is better the rest of the day and you can just do the easy stuff later. So it might not be the most urgent or the most important, but it's just the thing you don't want to do. Sometimes it helps to eat the frog and take care of that, especially on those things that you're kind of procrastinating around or really just avoiding. Different systems, again, different cases where you might apply one or the other. And the key is just to, again, be intentional about how you're approaching those things. So you've captured your things, you've organized it, you have your prioritization. There's a separate step here, which is this sort of mandated reflection. And that's just occasionally to come back and see how things are going, reviewing what you've been getting done, making sure that nothing has fallen through the cracks, kind of reviewing sort of what other projects are stewing in the background. Maybe, again, that's that calendar point where you're just checking on things. Talk specifically about like the weekly review, where maybe you actually have a spot that I'm going to actually review my list, see what things I got done, and see where it can happen. But just like everything else I was saying, this is very much something you need to have a system around to support and assure that you're actually doing it. So just another kind of just pause for reflection. So just kind of thinking to yourself right now, I just want you to think about this question of, when I empty out my inbox to 0 messages, or maybe if you never get to 0 and that's just how things need to be for you, I'm not making any judgment, but it feels fully managed and there's nothing outstanding that you have to worry about. Think about when that happens. Is that just when you're getting ready to leave for vacation? Is it just for the weekend? Is it the end of every day? Or is it something that never really actually happens? And the flip to that, same response is I feel the best about my inbox. It's probably going to be aligned with the same thing there, right? It's usually when it's fully managed that we feel best about it. And so it's just this idea that when your tasks are managed and fully accounted, that's when you feel good. And so that's the state we want to get to. If it's only and it's only when you're going into a vacation and you can truly have things cut off at that point and you feel relaxed and you're going into it, that's great. But wouldn't it be great if that's how you felt all the time? And if you answered the D's where you just never feel good about it, that's where actually probably another talk is useful, or actually even more so kind of doing some targeted things to actually get more optimized within Epic. Lots of things we have internally for that. A great resource that has really built up in the last few years is efficiency.epic.com. All kinds of different courses that are tailored to different points within the Epic system that you can find some tips and efficiencies and things that can make your life a lot better. Or just talk to your local friendly neighborhood Epic guru. I love to talk about these things. There are a lot of great informaticists in the Department of Family Medicine. Our leader, Jill Gordon, is in your department. So you've got some people who I'd love to help with this. So moving on to the engaging part of this is the actual time now where we've organized everything, we have our lists already, and now we're actually going to do it. And if you've done everything right to this point, it should be clear what task you're doing, and you should feel good about moving it and not having to worry about those things that you are not doing. And that's, again, this idea that there's always more you can be doing, but you can only take on one task at a time. So you should feel good about that task. If it's organized, if it's captured, you're putting your energy into that. And so now you have the workspace and you have to make sure that things are set up for success. So you're using your time well. Are you in the right place with the right tools, have all the things you need to be effective? Then yes, dive in and do it. Do you have time to complete it? Or is this going to be another loose thread that's going to hang over you and nag you because you didn't get it done in that time that you had blocked off for it? And maybe that's not the right thing to be doing then. Are you fresh? Are you rested? Is it going to be actually really a good use of your time? And so all those things I think are just important to choose. And then once you actually get into it, we'll talk now about like some tips to engage with this work and actually do these things. Talk about a few things here. I said before I wasn't going to talk much about emails. I'm going to talk a little about emails because that's a pain point for me. This is the part of the talk where every time I say these things, I think to myself, oh gosh, I really need to do better at these things I'm telling you all. But we'll also talk a little about some different things around time blocking, and I'll spend a few minutes talking specifically about the Pomodoro technique. So more to come there. So emails, I have a few just sort of general tenets that I like to try to stick to myself. And again, I talk to with emails. And the most popular one, again, this one you see talked a lot, this kind of fits with the getting things done framework, is the 2-minute rule. It's back to that thing about if you can get a task done in 2 minutes, just do it then. Well, with email, many of your tasks are just 2 minutes, right? But if you don't have enough time to actually do it, don't even open your email. Like, you're between patients, flip your phone up and see that you have 5 new messages. Don't do that. That's now it's bugging you. I would even sometimes go so far as to say, depending on what role you are in, maybe don't even have alerts for emails on your phone, because it's just a source of nagging you, and rather intentionally go into that when you have the time to do it. Again, there though, now you've gone through, you start to look at it, and there are things that it's going to take you less than 2 minutes. Again, just take care of that in the moment. Don't read the next message if you can take care of the one in front of you with a quick reply. And if it's going to take more than 2 minutes to reply after you've read it, then you need to have a place to file it. That's that same capture thing. Sometimes that's adding flags, putting it into specific folders. Honestly, if you're diligent about management, even just that toggle of unread versus read can be effective. That's what I rely on, but the problem there is that it's constantly refilling out of my control with unread things. And so it takes a lot more of that kind of dip in to just clear out things. That leads to the second thing, which is the 5-second rule. This is my own, which is just to say that it takes about 5 seconds to determine whether or not you need an email or not. And that's 5 seconds that adds up if you're reading a lot of messages that just are not relevant or important for you. Spam, promotions, listservs that you don't really belong on, all of those things. It just spend 5 more seconds to either mark it as junk, maybe click the unsubscribe button. I've kind of gotten some pushback on this one because the security line these days is that unsubscribe buttons show you that you're a real email address. A lot of the times you know how you ended up on the list, and then I think hitting unsubscribe is fine because it's just taking yourself off the list. But if you don't know where it came from and it really seems nefarious, then maybe don't hit unsubscribe, just mark as spam or mark as junk. But again, just don't fall into the trap of saying, ooh, that's something interesting, I should hang back and read that later, and you're never going to read it, and now it's just another thing in the pile. So spend the 5 seconds to clear it out. And then the last email rule, I call this the 30-minute rule. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes, but the thing here is to be intentional about actually blocking time to do this. If you are someone who spends space in administration, this is a really, I think, just key thing, especially for more junior faculty, to get in that habit of putting something on your schedule where you're just going to be dealing with emails. And so you can block the time for that and approach it just like any other task, rather than just thinking you're just going to fit it in between things, or while you're on other meetings, or you're dividing your attention, or you're kind of having all those same things that I've been harping on for the last 20 minutes now about how our attention gets split into multiple different spaces. When we talk about actually managing time, there are a lot of different spaces here again, but a very common thing that comes within time management is the idea about blocking time. Kind of talked about it with the email a second ago, but there's sort of all these different ways where you are sort of building in that space to handle those projects or handle those things that take more than 2 minutes. There are some apps that work for this, some things online. The Todoist platform has one that does this well. I don't use that one personally, but I've had people tell me it's a good one. But they all kind of rely on this Pomodoro technique, which is interesting, actually. So Pomodoro, you might think that that's named after someone. It's really not, actually. This was a technique that was sort of described and really fleshed out by actually a software developer who was Italian, Francesco Cirillo is his name. And he just had a kitchen timer that happened to be in the shape of a tomato, like this one. If you speak Italian or you like Italian food, Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. So that's really where it came from. Has nothing to do with time blocking or 25 minutes or anything else like that. But it's this idea about sort of creating enough time and enough space to work deeply on a task, but not so long that your productivity starts to wane or you get overwhelmed with it. It might be a 2-hour task, but you're still going to work on it for 25 minutes, and you're going to set a timer to do that. When the timer rings, you have a 5-minute or 10-minute break. Maybe you do some reflection to that. Maybe you work on something else or knock out some 2-minute tasks. But then you come back and just, again, dedicate yourself to sort of refresh and rework into that protected space. And so maybe it takes, a couple, 2-4 times to go through it. Sometimes you might need to actually build a bigger break in to sort of refresh if you're going back up to the top of it. But it's again about structure and about protecting yourself to work on those things. So just to review, first thing I talked about at the top was just really that we're talking about managing our actions, not necessarily managing our times. We've got our systems. We're capturing things and pulling them out of our brain and putting them in a space where we know they are there and ready for us. And we know what the tasks are that we need to do or the steps we need to take to be successful. And we have a system around that. We're going back and we're reflecting and making sure we're keeping on top of things. And we're even bigger going back and reflecting and making sure things are working and being okay with maybe blowing it up and trying something completely different if the system's not working. And then we talked about some of those things that we're really kind of focusing in on or committing or engaging. So, but the last bullet point here is this, again, it's about having a system, being committed to it, and then changing it when it's not serving you or when it's not the right thing. At the end of the day, this, like I said at the beginning, this is all about making the most use of our time. It's not necessarily about being efficiency machines to allow us to cram everything we can into working 80 hours a week, but more about freeing us up for all of the other things we do. And quite frankly, you can do this in the other space too. And I think there's a fine line to this, and sort of hobbies and family and friendships should be free spaces that aren't always completely structured, but sometimes it can be helpful to have some of these kinds of things too, and how you're going to manage it. But at the end of the day, it's really, again, about control and managing our time and managing our tasks. And no matter what we do, there are times when it's going to fall and fail. Right now, I have an inbox of emails with probably 50 unread, and probably only 5 of those are things I actually need to do anything about. But I have to still get back to that and pull it down at some point. And so I think just the thing here is again, it's looking at different systems, and then also just, again, finding out what other people do. Talk to people. Come to talks like this. You're doing that here today. It's all good, and there are a lot of other opportunities for that. So there's the book again that I talked about, and I'll throw this other one in here, which most people have heard of, but there's a lot of great things that are kind of good just to flip back through with this, or read a summary of it or whatever, or find this to read the 7 habits. But that's all kind of the things to think about.